What's up, you little goobers and goblins? I actually almost got entirely done with this video, and then I was downloading a VOD at the same time, and I ran out of room, and then the file got corrupted, and it stopped my recording of this video, and the file got corrupted. So now we're starting over again. Hello, how are you? Things have been okay on these fronts. I went back to working at my old job, so we've been able to do more TikTok lives, which has been amazing. It's good to see all the old faces from back when I first started out. You know, it makes me really happy. And also, I've been able to go to the gym more because there's a full-size gym at work, so that's really fun. But I also wanted to say thank you so much to everybody for watching the last video. I think I posted it, I think when this comes out, it'll be like 6 days ago. And it's at like, almost 800 views, which I really did not expect that response from it because, I haven't posted like an actual, like one of these, like what we're doing right now. It's been like 2 years. It's been 2 years since my last like crime and cosmetics. But we have a true crime video for today. But I did want to just say thank you all so much. Like that made me really happy, and I was just thrilled, absolutely thrilled by it. And it, is encouraging me to keep, want to keep doing these, and I'm going to try to stay, as consistent as I can with it. I know a lot of you have been asking to bring back the crime and cosmetics videos, which I do want to do. They're just really time consuming with, and on top of everything else I have, it's really hard to do. So we might do them like once a month or something like that, but we will have them in the future. Just give me some time, to, get my feet back on the ground. You know what I'm saying? But we do have a true crime video for you today. We are going to be talking about the death of Chris Marquis. So it's the 90s, and Christopher Marquis lives in Fairhaven, Vermont, right? Yes, Fairhaven, Vermont. He is a 27-year-old loving father and husband. I think I mispronounced his last name just a second ago. Let go of that. It's Marquis, okay? I don't know why you're gaslighting and try to make me think I mispronounced it, but I pronounced it correctly last time. Anyways, he's a 27-year-old loving husband and father. He owns a business in Vermont called the CB Shack, where they buy, sell, trade radio equipment. And he spends his free time hunched over his desk with his CB radio, chatting it up with other people over the airwaves. Now, Chris rocked an incredibly powerful setup. He might have allegedly illegally modified his equipment to maybe broadcast his voice louder and further than citizen-owned radios were supposed to go, but that's neither here nor there. But he would frequently chat with fellow radio operators, making connections with people all across the United States, as well as advertise his business and help other operators with their gear. Also, if this story sounds familiar to you and you are a listener of the podcast Snacks Pack, I actually did cover this story on the podcast. I believe it was season 13, episode 6, titled Don't Blow Up Blind Kids. A little foreshadowing for you there. So you can definitely go listen to that episode because Goose also has a story that he covers. I think he covers the fake socialite girl Anna Sorkin or something. I think that's how you say her last name, but it's a really good episode. You should go check it out. But yes, I have covered this story on the podcast, but it is just such a insane story that I wanted to put it on the YouTube channel. So the kicker of this all is that Chris is not exactly who he portrays himself to be online and on the airwaves. Instead of being a 27-year-old loving father and husband, he's actually just a 17-year-old kid. And the CB Shack he boasts about owning is, in reality, just his mom's house that he lives in. He was, though, a CB enthusiast who, like I said earlier, had illegally modified his radio equipment to dominate the airwaves. But he was actually kind of a menace. So he would use the tag name Psycho or Taz, and he would regularly get on what was called the Working Man's Channel, which was essentially just a channel where truckers would use to get like updates on the weather, the traffic, speed traps, directions, things of that nature. And he would just be a nightmare on the Working Man's Channel. He would regularly get into arguments, and he would use like he would clog the channel up with dialogue. He would use those like old-timey noisemakers you heard in old radio shows, just to drown out anyone and everyone on that channel. It was insane. He would regularly get into like heated arguments with other people on the radio, and when he got into these arguments, there was no holding back. In interviews I read, people were like, someone had said like, quote, he said things to people I can never imagine saying to another person. And while he might have been a menace to others, he's a 17-year-old kid, man. I was an absolute terror as a 17-year-old kid, so I can't really dog him for that. He did have a soft side, though, when he wasn't, getting into COD lobby-esque altercations on the radio. He did have a girlfriend that he regularly talked to on Channel 1, which was a channel used for more of socializing. He met her on Channel 1, and she was also a CB enthusiast, and he would, spend a lot of time talking to her. And like I said earlier, Chris lived with his mother, Sheila, mainly because Chris suffered, well, he's 17, and he suffered from a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, and it rendered him blind at night, and he had very narrowing vision during the day, and it was progressively getting worse. Hi, can I help you? I'm gonna need to, oh, okay, I'm gonna need to set you down. So Chris was the baby of the family, and because of his condition, he kind of got whatever he wanted. I saw some stories saying that his mom was kind of an enabler, but like, as a fellow baby of the family, I get it. I get it. I also read somewhere that him and his mom would regularly shoplift together, which is really funny. Nothing like a little sticky finger sesh with your wait, no. I didn't mean that. Rewind that. Nothing like a little light shoplifting with your mom. But to also make extra money, Chris would, on the side, he would sell and trade radio equipment with other enthusiasts. Unfortunately, though, those sales and trades were usually just Chris scamming people out of money. What he would do is he would go to chat rooms and forums, and he would post on them stating that he owned a business called the CB Shack, and anyone looking to buy, trade, or sell their unwanted, unused old radio equipment should email him. He would strike up a deal with someone for like some kind of top dollar radio or something, and they would send him cash via a check in the mail, and he would then send the person a phony tracking number and make it look like he kept his end of the bargain. And when they would figure out that they had just parted ways with high dollar equipment and had been scammed, Chris would then stop returning their phone calls and emails. Chris was actually notorious for doing this. A member of one of these online chat rooms and forums named Tomcat, he frequented a very popular CB radio forum, and Chris had scammed him. He would post regularly asking, if anyone else had been scammed by CB Shack, and if they had, to send him their stories via email. And once he made that post, the emails just started flooding in, and Tomcat would regularly post about Chris and threaten him. One of his posts reading, quote, "I am posting ads about that crook all over the internet. The address I have is Washington Street, Fairhaven, Vermont. Don't mail this liar any money, or you will be poor but wiser. If I can find someone to pay the two-way airfare, I will go there and collect everyone's money back and give him some severe dental problems to deal with. Are you listening, Chris? When you see a 6'5" dark-haired man at your door, you better duck, because I will be about to drop the mall on you. Oh, sorry. You better duck, because I will be about to drop the mall, ... on your noggin, dude, ... The least threatening threat email I've ever seen, but go off, queen. So Chris had been running this hot scam for quite some time, and to be honest, it was netting him quite a bit of money. If someone sent in some top dollar equipment that he didn't have, he would keep what he wanted for his collection, and then he would sell the rest and use the money to further fuel his hobby. So, on March 19th, 1998, UPS drops a delivery off at Chris's mother's house. Sheila, who had just got home from work, picks it up, sees the package on the front porch, sees that it's addressed to Chris, picks it up, and brings it to him in his room. Chris at the time was on the radio chatting with his girlfriend like he usually did, and his mother handed him the box. Chris looks at who it's from and sees that the name on the return address is for Samantha Brown. A name he wasn't really familiar with. And he wasn't, didn't really know the address either, but he's like, oh, I wasn't expecting a package, but whatever. Let's see what it is. So Chris's mom sits on the edge of his bed as he pulls out a pocket knife that he always had on him, and he cuts open this box. When he opens the box, inside he finds a smaller box surrounded by packing peanuts. He takes his knife, and as he's opening that smaller box, a powerful pipe bomb that had been packed inside detonates. Smoke and fire fill the house, and Chris gets up and tries to run out of the house, but quickly collapses after only a few steps. He had suffered multiple lacerations to his abdomen, and a huge portion of his thigh had been blown off. Sheila attempts to crawl to Chris, but collapses. She was missing her knee and most of the fingers on her right hand. Luckily, EMS response time was super quick. They actually lived very close to the police station at the time, and so close that the police chief actually hears the explosion from his office. He rushes out of the building and he locates which house it came from. And he runs in, he sees the mayhem and the carnage, he starts to administer aid, and he gets EMS en route. So EMS does what they can, and both are transported to the hospital. Sheila would actually survive her injuries, but unfortunately, Chris would die shortly. I think what I read was that he died, while in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, because the blast had hit, torn open his femoral artery. So after this happens, this is a small town, bro, in the 90s. So a pipe bomb being sent through the mail and explode in this residential neighborhood. The FBI and the ATF and press descend upon this small Vermont town like a swarm, bro. They waste no time getting in and trying to identify who sent the pipe bomb. The bomb itself was an absolutely devastating device. So, like I said, it was a pipe bomb, and it was packed really tightly with gunpowder. Just that alone is going to cause some damage. But on the outside of the bomb's container, the person who had sent it had coated the entire casing in hex nuts, to maximize the carnage. And the explosion, so much gunpowder was packed in that the explosion blew a hole in not only the ceiling but the floor as well of the house. Now, like I said, the gunpowder is enough to do some damage. If you're not familiar how a regular grenade works, like a regular fragmentation grenade, it's not necessarily the explosion that kills you. It is hence the name, fragmentation of the shell that the explosion is housed in. It shoots shrapnel, tiny shards of hot metal in every direction, and it's devastating. This man coated that casing in hex nuts, so once that thing exploded, those hex nuts, went everywhere in the room at Mach speed, bro. I just can't think of any other word to describe it than devastating. So the FBI and the ATF start to do some digging, and the name and the address on the package were obviously a dead end. Duh. Excuse me. So after the story breaks and hits national news, Tomcat, the guy who was making all those threatening posts about Chris, starts freaking out. He's like, oh my god, they're gonna think it's me. So he basically calls the FBI and proclaims his innocence, and is basically like, I had beef with the kid, but I did not send that pipe bomb to kill him. And that he wasn't the bomber. And this kind of opens the FBI up to the fact that Chris had made quite a bit of enemies. They start digging into his online history and what he was doing. And while they were searching the house for further evidence, they find the name and the address and a number of a man named Chris Dean. So I've read that this is how the FBI got Christine's information. I also read in an article that Chris's mother was the one who gave them Christine's information, that as she was being taken, to the ambulance, she tells police, Christine, Christine, Christine. So Dean happened to be one of the people that Chris had ended up scamming. Dean sent him an $800 radio, and Chris, in return, sent him a really crappy radio from the 70s that didn't work. Hi, Miss Mams. You want to say hi? Oh, yeah, that's a little girl right there. I love you. Go on. Go on. So, yeah, Chris had sent him a really crappy radio from the 70s that didn't work. Obviously, scam the hell out of this dude. Dean was a truck driver and a radio enthusiast who was known really to be nothing but like a super chill and kind guy over the airwaves. He was known by people that knew him as a nice guy who had a slight hint of OCD. He kept his house and yard spotless, as well as consistently washed his 2 cars. But apparently Chris had scammed Dean. When that had happened, Dean began calling Chris's house regularly and threatening to show up to his doorstep and give him a good scare, things of this nature. Chris's mom was usually the one that answered the phone, so she would regularly have to lie and tell Dean that Chris either wasn't there or make up some other excuse. At one point, she even tells him, oh yeah, Chris is in jail in another state. And once the FBI learn about Christine, they begin looking into him, and they get a hold of his employer because he was a truck driver, and his employer confirms that his truck route did place him in the city that the explosive package was sent from. Now, while conducting their investigation, a close friend of Dean's actually ends up coming forward to the FBI as, not an informant, like a key witness, basically, or like just a witness. I don't know what the name for it is. And he states that Dean had, in fact, discussed with him about some trouble he was having with someone in Vermont. The witness said that he had helped Dean set up his computer to access the internet, because remember, this is the 90s. Not everybody had that. And that Dean was, in fact, looking up instructions on how to build a pipe bomb, most likely getting his hands on an online version of the Anarchist Cookbook. I don't know if you know what the Anarchist Cookbook is, but it's essentially a book that was created that shows you how to make all kinds of explosives and all kinds of just like guerrilla-style weaponry and warfare tactics, things of that nature. There are 2 Anarchist cookbooks out now. There might be more. I think there's 3, actually. There might be way more than that. I haven't looked at the Anarchist cookbook since I was like 16. But there's one that is all about like activism and how to make like paint bombs and stuff like that, and graffiti and like wheat paste to put up flyers and everything. Then there's the one that was written in the 70s, which is the one he most likely got his hands on. And then there's an online version that includes a lot of like, when I read it, it was, early 2000s, so it was a lot of like really old school like hacking techniques and stuff like that, as well as the stuff from the 70s version of the Anarchist Cookbook. Anyways, the informant then states that 5 days before the bombing, Dean had told him that he, quote, was going to send the guy a package in the mail, and boy, is he going to be surprised. The feds ended up arresting Dean, and they scour his house for evidence, and they find a number of things, obviously. They find the same styrofoam used to encase the pipe bomb. They find the end caps used to construct the bomb, and they also find a blast hole in his backyard that where he had tested a prototype of the bomb. 2 of the most damning pieces of evidence that the FBI and the ATF did find were batteries found in Dean's house that had the same lot number as the ones used in the bomb, and then a file on Dean's computer on how to construct the pipe bomb that he thought he deleted. So obviously Christine ends up getting arrested, and initially the prosecutors had wanted to go for the death penalty. But, you know, luckily for Dean, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And what's crazy is, like, this is an insane story, but there's, like, not a ton of, you know, articles. I think there's a YouTube video you can watch from Real Cybercrime called The Boy Murdered Through the Mail. And there's a couple articles you can find about it, but, like, that's really the only sources of this story. I did find a couple articles about, I think in 2018, I'm pretty sure Christine is still, you know, behind bars. But in 2018, Chris's mom, Sheila, had went and visited Dean in prison, and they kind of sat down and had a heart-to-heart, and she was basically like, you know, like, I can forgive you for the damage you caused to me, the bodily harm you caused to me. She was like, but I'll never forgive you for killing my son, which completely understandable. And obviously Chris, you know, Marquis did not deserve to die. He was a shithead 17-year-old kid, man. If I was put on trial for my actions as a 17-year-old, I probably would have got the death penalty. But nonetheless, it is an insane story. But that is the, you know, the unfortunate death of Chris Marquis. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do enjoy making these. I really do enjoy making these. We'll do, you know, we'll cover, if you have anything you want, you know, any story or anything like that you want covered, leave it in the comments below. You know, it can be like a true crime story, or it can be some, you know, morbid, macabre thing like our last video. We'll have to, you know, put the murder pot back into rotation. There's gonna be a few stories that I've covered on the podcast that I'll cover on the YouTube channel, because I just think they're really interesting, and it'd be like, it's a kind of a good way to cross, you know, promote the podcast, which is Snacks Packs, is on all streaming platforms. We actually just had Joe Exotic as a special guest on one of our episodes, which was wild to say the least, called Straight from Jail to My Phone. So don't forget to rate, review, subscribe. Again, if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. You know, we're you know, consistently still going live on Twitch every night. Come hang out there. I'll post the links to all my other social medias in the description of this video. And then, yeah, we post our daily videos on TikTok and Instagram. And I think that's it. Again, thank you guys so much for, you know, all the love you showed to the last video I uploaded. It really meant the world to me. Like, honestly, like, it's been really rough. It's been a really rough time, and that was like a light for me. I absolutely loved, you know, that you guys were not upset with me for not posting, you know, a true crime or anything in like 2 years. Can I help you, Miss Ma'am? Come on now, get in your spot, you know better. But I really do appreciate it. So I will see you guys next week. Be safe, be kind to others, be kind to yourself. Know that you're loved, you are valued, you are cherished, and that there is always a place for you here in this community. Bye-bye!